and welcome to VoiceOver for Apple products. My name is Kate Mosley and I'm an AT specialist. I am a task employee that contracts with STAR to provide AT webinars and trainings. You can view these trainings at www.startraining.org. This PowerPoint will be available for your own use. If you have any additional questions or have an idea for a webinar that you'd like me to do, please email me at kmosley@ucphuntsville.org. So just a little bit about TASK and STAR. TASK stands for Technology Assistance for Special Consumers. We do AT consultations, evaluations, informal sessions, and technical assistance. We also have a lending library where you can check out equipment for 2 to 3 weeks. This equipment includes switches, mounts, adaptive toys, communication aids, and much more. STAR is Alabama's assistive technology resource. The website AT for All is an online database that provides current inventory of AT and medical equipment. If you are looking for a piece of equipment and are unable to find it, you can also post want ads for items that you were not able to find. These items can include wheelchairs, scooters, shower bath aids, commodes, hospital beds, walkers, and more. So the objectives for this training will be to turn on our accessibility shortcut, locate VoiceOver, turn VoiceOver on and off, understand the settings of VoiceOver, and understand how to utilize the Braille and router features. So now a little bit about VoiceOver. First off, I want to say that with all my accessibility webinars, the features work for both iPads and iPhones. This VoiceOver webinar works with iPads and iPhones that have been updated with iOS 8.4, unless I mention otherwise. So what is VoiceOver? VoiceOver reads what is on your screen, specifically under your finger. When you tap the screen, it'll say what your finger's over, so that you can either confirm that is what you want to select or move your finger to another part of the screen. It's important to practice VoiceOver because the commands do change. This means that tapping something on the screen does not select it. You must tap twice. As with all the accessibility features, there is an accessibility shortcut. Tap the home button 3 times and then tap VoiceOver twice to exit out of VoiceOver at any time. This works with most of the accessibility features as a quick exit route. Also, if your product has Siri, you can turn on Siri and tell her to turn off VoiceOver, and she will quit the program without you having to touch the screen. If you're looking for more information about VoiceOver, you can go to www.apple.com/accessibility/iOS/voiceover for more helpful hints. Okay, so we're going to start with how to access the accessibility shortcut. So we're going to go ahead and go into Settings. Under General, we're going to go to Accessibility. And we are going to scroll all the way down to the very bottom till we get to Accessibility Shortcut. So this shortcut activates a small menu when you push the home button 3 times. This menu allows you to turn on or turn off any of the features listed here. This is really helpful if you're lost or confused in one of the features. You can easily get out of it. I recommend that you turn on all of the features so that if anyone is activated for any reason, you can always get out of it. You'll know it is turned on when there's a small blue check next to the feature. Starting from accessibility, we are going to click on VoiceOver at the very top. The first button is our VoiceOver on and off switch. We will come back to this later. For speaking rate, the turtle means slow and the rabbit means fast. So the slower you make your speaking rate, the slower someone's going to talk. When speaking hints is turned on, it will give you a hint about what to do after it announces what is under your finger. For example, when voiceover and speak hints is turned on and I highlight use pitch change, it will say use pitch change on and then say double tap to toggle settings. This is useful if you are unsure if your finger is above an on-off switch or a header to a larger group. Using pitch change will have the iPad's voice sound more natural when reading a sentence. Use sound effects will give you auditory cues about moving between buttons and pages. Speech allows you to change your language and the quality of your voice on VoiceOver. I have downloaded Alex. Alex is a high-quality voice that takes pauses for breaths and uses different pitches while speaking. It is the most natural sounding of the 3 Apple voice products.
For now, we are going to skip over the Braille options and go right into the rotor features. Before I go over this page, I'd like to take a moment to explain what rotor is. Rotor is an easy way to access settings when using Braille Display. If you are unable to see the screen, it might be tedious and difficult to get to the general accessibility voiceover options each time. So the rotor is a small settings screen that'll appear on your screen in any app where you can access any of the features in this list. So, once you tap rotor, you are brought to a page with many different options. For the purpose of this webinar, I'm going to include speech rate, volume, Braille screen input, and links. Now, when VoiceOver is on, you have access to these features in our small setting menu. To access these features in the rotor, you must be out of the Settings app and VoiceOver must be turned on. Now take your pointer finger and your thumb and twist them as if you are twisting
volume,
a knob.
Speech rate, volume.
So you can see there's
Speech
the
rate,
rotor right there.
Volume.
So now that we understand our rotor features, let's talk about Braille. Before we get into the Braille feature on the iPad, let's talk about Braille Displays. Braille Displays are a physical display of Braille. This means that you can hold it, touch it, feel it, and it's separate from the iPad. These little white dots on the humanware Braille display raise and lower to form Braille words in real time. The larger buttons are for input into the device. This is how you would type your letters in Braille onto the device. This is just one example of a Braille display. There are many different companies that make many different types, whichever one best suits your needs. So let's go back into our Braille tab. Believe it or not, you actually have a Braille keyboard installed into your iPad settings. Tap the Braille button and you are led to this page. This page is where you set up your Braille display or Braille keyboard. If you use a physical Braille display, like the one I just talked about in the PowerPoint, it will probably be Bluetooth connected and you should see it pop under Choose Braille Display at the very bottom. Tap on your Braille display keyboard and it should activate. At the very top of the page is the Braille input and output. If you are using a physical Braille display, the first 2 options will be how you read information, output, and how you put information into the system, input. Choose between 6, 8, or contracted Braille for both options. The Braille screen input option allows you to input Braille with just your iProduct screen. I am doing this tutorial from an iPad Air 2, so I have the option to use 8-dot Braille, but if you are using an iPhone, you will only have access to 6-dot Braille input. So let us try out our Braille keyboard. To do so, we must first turn on VoiceOver and back out of the Settings app. Now turn our rotor until we hear Braille screen input. Then release your fingers from the iPad. So this is what our Braille keyboard looks like. To exit out of Braille screen input, either twist your fingers like you do for the rotor, Lock your iPad and then unlock it, or use our handy-dandy accessibility shortcut by tapping the home button 3 times and then tapping VoiceOver twice. If I am unable to see the iPad, touching the Braille display is not a problem because it follows your fingers. So we're going to turn on VoiceOver, get our Braille display up, and see how it moves across the screen? I am moving my fingers along the edge of the iPad and the Braille keys follow. Now I can type Braille as I would on any Braille display. Back in our Settings app, our next setting is called Status Sale. Status Cell only works on the Braille physical display. It will tell you in Braille what VoiceOver is highlighting by using the electronic Braille dots. So when you've highlighted General with your VoiceOver, it will appear General on the Braille display. When Equations using Nemeth code is turned on, you can type mathematical equations with Braille. Show on-screen keyboard will give you access to on-screen keyboard even when you have a Braille display and a Braille keyboard. Turning pages when panning will turn pages on books when you swipe across the screen.
Braille translation allows you to change the dialect of the Braille being used. Here we have Unified, US, and United Kingdom as options. If this was in a different language, you would have different Braille translation options. So before we get into typing style, I'd like to go over how to use VoiceOver. So as I had mentioned in the PowerPoint, VoiceOver uses different commands to control the iPad. You'll see under the VoiceOver on-off switch the instructions for using VoiceOver. Tap once to select an item, double tap to activate the selected item, and swipe 3 fingers to scroll. There are more controls, and you can find those on the accessibility website at www.apple.com. But these are the 3 basic functions. So when I turn VoiceOver on, you'll notice a cursor above Settings. Now, if I wanted to tap VoiceOver off, I would first tap once VoiceOver, and you'll see that the black cursor has outlined the VoiceOver on-off switch. Now if I tap it again, nothing happens. You need to double tap, that's tapping twice, to have it turn off. So another example. If I'm at the home screen, I have all of my apps in little tiny folders on my home screen. If I wanted to click on Osmo, for example, I would tap Osmo and then double tap to open up my folder. Then again, if I was going to Masterpiece, I would tap and then double tap. Typing style allows 3 options for typing on your iPad when VoiceOver is on: standard typing, touch typing, and direct touch typing. Standard typing requires you push the letter key twice for each letter you want to type. Touch typing highlights and speaks the letter, but you only need to tap it once. Direct typing is very similar to touch typing, but it does not highlight the letter, so it would not show up on a status cell in Braille display if you were using one. I will now demonstrate these 3 styles. Start with standard typing. So we want to make sure that VoiceOver is on for this to work. So you can see the cursor moving through the options. We're going to go into Notes and just type hello. So what I have to do for each key that I touch is I have to put my finger over it to highlight it and then double tap twice. So finger over the E, then double tap the E twice. Same with L, but because I've already selected L, I can just double tap again and then highlight the O and double tap. Now we will go over touch typing. So with touch typing, Let's open Notes. We simply need to touch the character we're trying to type, and we don't have to double tap it, which is nice. But you can still see the cursors over what letter I'm typing. With direct touch typing, every letter that I touch is not highlighted by the cursor, and I only have to type once. So back in our voiceover page, let's review the rest of the features. Phonetic feedback makes voiceover pronounce letters as the phonetic equivalent. For example, A for alpha, B for Bravo. You can have characters, like math, and phonetics, or you can have phonetics only. You can also turn this feature off if you'd like neither. Typing feedback will have VoiceOver let you know what letters you have typed, and when you've completed a word, it will pronounce the word. You can have different settings for software keyboards and hardware keyboards. So this keyboard that appears on the screen versus the physical hardware keyboard. Again, you can have characters spoken, words, or characters and words, or nothing. And just because you have characters and words selected for software keyboards doesn't mean hardware keyboards need to have anything said. Always Speak notifications will read the pop-up notifications from text, app alerts, and other notifications. This is a great feature, but keep in mind it could interrupt movies or reading of books. Navigate Images has VoiceOver read descriptions of the images, or if there is no description of the image, it will read the file name on software programs like Safari. You can have it always read an image, only images that have descriptions, or not at all. Last but not least, large cursor makes the cursor bold so it's easier to see. So this is large cursor turn on. You can see over settings it's very thick and black. Oops. And if the large cursor is off, it's a bit thinner. So we've been over how to turn on our accessibility shortcut, how to locate VoiceOver, how to turn VoiceOver on and off, and understand the settings of VoiceOver, and understand how to utilize the Braille and Rotor features. So again, if you have any questions about this PowerPoint or have an idea of a presentation you'd like me to do, please email me at kmosley@ucphuntsville.org. Thank you.